What is up, YouTube? This is your girl Ash. How are you doing today? Um, welcome to my world. First of all, this is my world, just crazy. Anyway, so I figured while I'm going through the whole grieving process and while I'm going through the whole making new me things and just trying to just do just so much mentally, emotionally, and physically and all that, I figured I would include you in my other stories as well. So this particular story time is the time that my sister outed me at church, by the way. So I had always knew that I was gay. Okay, I've known this since I was like 9 or 10, maybe even 8. I'm not sure. I've always knew, and back then, late 90s, early 2000s, you really couldn't necessarily, at least where I'm from, you couldn't necessarily come out, and if you did, it kind of was on a hush hush, or it was not as allowed as it is now. Okay, so um, I kept it to myself, and I would always like go hang out with other girls, or whatever. But I always had my sister with me, so and she was like always like I used to use her as an alibi when I went somewhere, just so that I didn't get in trouble. And they were always then at the time known as my friends. But she would often sometimes see me maybe kiss another girl or nothing too crazy, of course, but I'd have my arm around her, whatever the case may be. And so over the course of time, I guess she held on to that and she figured it out when she got older. And at that, we were really active in church when I was younger. I'm still active in church now, but it was big when I was young because my mama, she didn't believe in us just sitting around doing nothing. She didn't believe in us just going to church and sitting on the pew and not being active in the church. So we were big on, we had to dance. Like I was in dance. We were both in dance. We would both usher, but then I transitioned from being a usher to just going from dance to then being in the choir. So I did both of those every fourth Sunday. And my sister would dance and then go play drums and usher on fourth Sunday. So this particular Saturday, we were there for our choir rehearsal. We had already had dance rehearsal earlier that day, and we then had our choir rehearsal, which was dance rehearsal was downstairs. When we got done with that, when we went upstairs to choir rehearsal, and me and her, like I was at this when she outed me, I was about 15, 16. So I still kept it to myself, never really telling my mama, hey, I'm gay. That's something that she really wanted to share. And so we were already arguing at home. Like she got mad because I was telling her, do the dishes, do this and the other, do the dishes, clean your room, pick up your stuff, your toys, whatever. And you always telling me what to do, da, 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 just going back and forth with me. You know how sisters or siblings act. And so that's what she was always on, where we walked all the way from our house to the church, which was nothing but a 10-15 minute walk, which wasn't bad. But we were arguing literally from the time we left the house all the way until we got to the church. And we tried to, I guess, keep it normal. By the time we got there, we stopped where she went straight to the drums. I went up in the choir stand, took my seat. We did our rehearsals. And I don't know, she was doing something. She had her phone. And this was back when the Nokia 1100s was out. Y'all remember the Nokia 1100s? Those were so much fun. I used to play Snake and everything on mine. But anyway, I digress. So she was on her phone at the drum set, and I'm looking at her while I'm in the choir, and I text her then, like, get off your phone. So she's like, you can't tell me what to do, just text me back and forth. And she's just like, you always trying to boss me around, da 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 da. I'm like, I'm not bossing you around. I'm trying to make sure that you're doing what you're supposed to do, so that when mama ask somebody how we did while she wasn't here, we don't both get in trouble. I'm gonna get in trouble for you, and I'm not about to get a whooping over you. So she's like, well, forget you, da 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 da. We get to argue. She leaves out the sanctuary to go into the vestibule, which the hallway vestibule, and she was out there, whatever. She was mad at me. I'm trying to go out there and talk to her. We get to arguing, and there are other people that are out in the hallway. And while they're in the hallway, they're observing us argue. Y'all shouldn't be arguing, y'all sisters. I'm like, nah, forget her. She always get on my nerves. Da 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 da. She'll never listen. She'll never do what she's supposed to do. I always get in trouble for her. I always take the rap. And no, it's over. I'm done. I'm done. And they were like, no, you can't be like that. She's like, well, forget you then. And she literally, like she said, she was like literally going on at the time. She was just like really aggravating at that time. She was coming, getting ready to be a teenager. I guess I was already a teenager. So if I was 16, let's see, how old was she? She was like 8, 9. No, no, was she? I think so. Yeah, about 9 or 10. We'll say 9 or 10. And we were, like I said, we were getting into it, and it was crazy because she was like, "You don't do this, da, da, da. You don't never act like you care, da, 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 da. Don't act like that. I'm gonna tell mommy anyway, da, 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 da. Forget you then, Ashley. Forget you then." Just going back and forth, and we just exchanged some words, and we was, doing what normal siblings do. And then I'm standing by the glass door getting ready to go outside because I wanted to get some air. And she's like, "Forget you. That's why you gay." I paused. I'm like, and there's other people, like I told you, that are in the sanctuary that heard this take place. And I'm like I was so done. I was so heated. Like we even got this fighting in the like not the sanctuary. We got the fighting in the hallway, which was right by the outside. So we got the fighting and everything, and they was trying to break us up, keep me apart from her. I'm like, forget you, then get your own way. I decided to leave. I went on ahead and walked away, and we lived right around the corner from the church, so I didn't have far to go when I wanted to go home. So I'm like, forget you, then walk by yourself. Walk by yourself. I was leaving everything. So like, it got crazy. So we got to the point where this is that Saturday. So going into that Sunday, of course, word got back to my mama. Somebody approached her and hit her with the, "Did you know Ashley was gay?" And she hit him with the, "No, she's not." Da, 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 da. Like she was not gonna believe what anybody else told her if it didn't come out of my mouth. And that's just how she was. She wouldn't. You could never say, "Oh, my daughter or your daughters did this, that, and the other," because she wouldn't believe it unless she actually physically seen us do it or knows that's our character to do so. So this one, she did not want to go based off of that at all. Like she wasn't feeling it. She wasn't going. So, I don't know why I did that. So my bad, y'all. I don't know. I took the screen. I don't know what I was doing, but my bad. Anyway, back to the story at hand. So she's like, "I don't believe this." Da 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 da. I'm like, sorry, my butt. Now da 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 da, because I know she said more, but I don't exactly remember what all was said. I just remember certain things that she said that I held on to that was important. And then she was like, we were sitting outside, we were at church. We were at church, went through the whole church service. Somebody approached her. She defended me. She got into an argument with somebody at the church over me. That blew up. Um, it was actually one of the people that I used to consider my aunt. They had got into a real knockdown, drag out fight because I guess she heard from somebody else what had happened, what transpired between me and my sister that Saturday. And she took it upon herself to tell our mother that her child was gay. And that blew up and went completely south. So then, like I said, we were considering her our aunt. But they, like I said, them falling out, they kind of split up a little while. I felt guilty off of that because I was like, oh my goodness, like they kind of messed up their friendship over me. My sexuality really should have nothing to do with everybody else. But apparently my sexuality is causing an issue for everybody. So I felt bad, of course. We got back home after church that Sunday. Like I said, we didn't live too far, so we walked home, and it was like literally utter silence. Me and my baby sister were walking in the front. My middle sister, the one that outed me at the church, was walking with our mom behind us. And we were walking. We got to the house. Mom was like, "What y'all want to eat for dinner?" I was like, "It's whatever. I don't care." And then I got ready to go upstairs, and she's like, "Hey, Ash, wait a minute." And she was like, "Y'all go ahead." She's telling my sisters, like, "Y'all go ahead." And I'm like, "Okay." So I sit at the table, and she's like, "Let me talk to you for a second." I'm like, "Oh shit, Mama done found out. She knows I'm gay." Like this is the entire time in my head. I'm like, "She knows I'm gay." Like, oh my god. So I'm in it. Look, I'm panicking now. Okay, my stomach is literally flipping and dipping and turning into knots. Like I'm just like, she's about to just, she about to go in. And she's like, she's in there, she's at the stove, like ain't she's nonchalant. So she has not sat down with me. I'm at the table, she has not sat down. I'm steady just looking at her, and I'm just the entire time just drumming my fingers against the table, like, you know how you do like your wait, this table, okay. You do like that. I'm doing that at the table, and I'm watching her and everything. I'm just like so nervous. My hands are starting to sweat. I'm like, okay, here goes. It's going down. She about to she gonna put me out. She ain't gonna be living here no more. It's gonna get ugly. These are things that I was thinking in my head. And she's like, "So is there something you can tell me?" And I'm like, uh not really. And she's like, "Are you sure?" And I'm like, "About what exactly?" She's like, "So I heard something about you at church today." And I'm like, "What you hear?" She's like, "Don't play dumb with me. You know what I heard. You know what was told to me. I need to hear it from you." And I'm like looking around at everywhere in this kitchen but at my mama. Like I didn't even want to make eye contact with her. And I'm like just steady just looking around. Like I'm a teenager. I don't want to I want to watch what I say cuz either I can get smacked or I could lose my place. What are the two? I like living with my mama. Like, you know, you hear stories, you know what I mean? So I didn't want to be like I didn't want that to happen to me. So I'm like, I don't know if I want to tell you. And she's like, "Well, I'm not gonna pressure you, but when you're ready, I need to hear it from you." And I'm like, "Okay, is that all?" And she's like, "Yeah, you can go." So I girt out of the kitchen. Like I just take off running. And I run straight to my room, come out of my church clothes, whatever. And I go sit outside on the front porch, and we had this like L-shaped wooden deck. I used to love to sit outside because there's a big tree in the front. Couldn't nobody really see me. But it was enough shade and comfort to be still outside without having that whole bee felt, you know, the bees and the heat and all that. It didn't. I liked sitting there. We had these old fashioned lawn chairs too. It was comfortable. So I was sitting outside or whatever, and I'm guessing my mama had got done cooking dinner because she then came outside a little while later. I wasn't exactly hungry yet, but she came outside and said, "Well, when you're ready, dinner's ready." I'm like, "Okay." And she got ready to walk away. I'm like, "Mom, all right, I need to talk to you." And she's like, she just looks at me. It's like this have this curious kind of face, curious but serious face. And she's like, "Okay." And she sits down on in the lawn chair next to me. And I'm like, "So, what if I told you I was gay?" And she's like, "Well, you're a teenager. I know you know what it means, but are you sure?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure I'm gay." And she's like, "Okay. And why did you feel like you couldn't tell me that?" I'm like, "Well, because I didn't want you mad at me, and I didn't want you to put me out. So I wanted to wait until I could comfortably tell you." And she's like, "Well, you're comfortably telling me now. We could have did this a long time ago." I'm like, "Are you mad?" And she's like, "No, I'm not mad. I just wish I would have found out from you first versus hear from somebody else." And I'm like, you know what? Thinking to myself, like, this makes sense. Like, she's legit, right? You know, I had the type of relationship with my mom that I should have knew to come to her, but at the same time, like, I was, oh my god, like my heart was just beating fast. Like, okay, maybe I should have, but I was so nervous. I'm like, okay, and I'm trying to breathe and relax. She's like, "Nah, I love you, but I really would have wanted to hear that from you. You know, you could tell me anything." And I told her I was sorry. We hugged, and she said, "So," she was like, So does that mean I don't get grandkids? I'm like, no, it don't. I want them someday. I just don't want them with a guy. Like, and she's like, all right. And that was really the end of it. Like, we never really discussed it again. She just always would always tell people like, yeah, she is. You know, whenever they would ask her or would ask why I wasn't wearing dresses or skirts or nothing like that, like that's her personal preference. She doesn't wear those types of items. And like that was it. And then when people did start to know about my sexuality and they approached her about it, and she would always tell them like, that's still my daughter. I love her regardless. That's my child. I see her as my daughter. Nothing changed about her. She just has a preference. Her preference is females, and her preference is not even all females. We went to that conversation too. Like I used to, like it was crazy because once I came out, gradually the older I got, the more she wanted to understand the whole rainbow world. She wanted to understand lesbianism. She wanted to understand gays. She wanted to understand pansexual. Pansexual came out it wasn't out when I was younger. Let me say that. I wasn't saying it then. I was just saying I was a lesbian. But as I got older, like now I'm in my 30s. So even in my 20s and 30s, she wanted to understand more of what it was and what it meant. And then she would proudly wear a P flag button on her jacket. Like we went to a sex store and there was all type of sex toys in there. And she was like, wait, so guys and girls use this? I said, some of them do, yeah. I don't, but some of them do. And she's like, oh my God. Oh my God. I'm like, no, nothing like that, mama. I don't use nothing like that. Like I ain't for that. I'm not for that. It's over. Like, nope. I'm still a virgin, so you ain't gotta worry about that. She's like, well, at least I got something to hold on to. I'm like, mama, for real? Like, so it was cool. It went well. Like some days she used to be like, maybe it was my fault I cuddled you too much, or I loved you too much, or I let you sleep in my bed too long, whatever. And I had to tell her, like, no, it had nothing to do with that. It was, unfortunately, when I was younger, I was molested when I was in school. It was by two boys. And my great uncle, my father's uncle, had molested or tried to molest me anyway, and I knew the no touches and things of that nature. I'll go into that in another story. But yeah, I didn't feel like I needed to say, that it was anything in particular she done because she had never done anything. She just loved us and she loved me. I was her first child. Like the joke was always I was her dummy child. The child she could make all the mistakes with and figure it out because she was learning. She had me like 19. She was 18, 19. And so I was that first child for the first 8-9 years of my life. So I got to experience and learn different things, and I was open to so much more. And because of this is what should have made it easier for me to talk to my mama. But I was so afraid of disappointing her with something like that I never went to her. And that was my fault. And it really turned out great. Like I was able to, my mama, as I got older, became more of my best friend than my mother. Like she had the motherly thing where if I needed advice, she still gave it to me, but she would also give me the advice as if she's my best friend as well. And I loved that about her. That was our thing, and that's something that I know for a fact that if I would have went to her and said, hey, mom, I'm gay, it would have been just a squashed it and been done. Like would have been nothing else from it. But I'm grateful for the moment, and I'm grateful for actually my sister outed me because she took a lot of load off my shoulders. Like being a child growing up and being a teenager, whatever, and in the church, heavy, where you are active and being gay, ooh, that's a load. It's everything short of being a pastor's child. And I wasn't a pastor's child, but I was almost, probably could have said it because I was always in church so much. Every child or every young adult that has always grown up in church has always probably felt at some point they were disappointing somebody in the church. And I loved my church members and certain ones that I grew to be close to over my course of spiritual growth. So I didn't want to disappoint them, and I didn't want to disappoint her. But I should have known that certain people that I am cool with now, still from the church, love me just as much then as they do now. And there's no difference besides my sexuality. I've never tried to push myself on anybody, whether in church or not in church. I love everybody anyway, and I'm very friendly, but I stick to just being me. You know what I mean? And being gay, that's all we gotta do. Just stick to just being us, and we'll be out. We'll be just fine. Pretty much. But that's my story. Like I said, I'm glad that my sister did that for me because she took a load off my shoulders. But it was cool. It was definitely cool. Um, yeah, but that's my story. I want to hear some of y'all's coming out stories. This is mine. This is me. Yeah, I guess this is my coming out story because I never actually had to actually come out. Somebody outed me, so I didn't have to. So I guess I got the easier part of that process. But I want to hear about y'all's coming out story. So definitely comment down below, like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. It's gonna be more, believe me. I'm gonna tell you about my first time. This is just a spoiler. That first time, it was bad. Let me just say that. It was bad. You'll like it. Definitely subscribe, and I'll tell you about it next time. Peace.